Most players fear failure. Michael Jordan feared something far more dangerous, being ordinary. Because in his prime, Jordan wasn't just playing basketball. He was hunting. Every game, every possession, every second he stepped on the floor. And the scary part, most NBA players didn't realize it until it was already too late. You've seen superstars dominate before, physically overpowering teams, shooting the lights out, or bullying defenders with size and strength. But Jordan's prime wasn't built on any one skill. It was built on a mindset so ruthless, so unforgiving, that it changed the psychology of the entire NBA. Imagine stepping onto the court knowing the man in front of you has already created a fictional story in his own mind, where you insulted him, you doubted him, you disrespected him, even if none of that ever happened. Because once Michael decided you were the enemy, there was no mercy left. Opposing players have talked about it for decades. That moment before tip-off when Jordan locked eyes with you and you felt something snap. A switch. Like he was accessing another level of being human. Not louder, not angrier, just colder, more focused, more alive. And that's the part casual fans miss. Prime Jordan wasn't scary because he jumped the highest, or because he scored the most points, or because he won more than anyone else. Prime Jordan was terrifying because he understood something nobody else fully mastered: how to break your mind before breaking your body. He wanted to embarrass you. He wanted to destroy your confidence. He wanted to make you doubt your own place in the NBA. He wanted to turn grown men, superstars, into supporting characters in his story. And the league felt it. Stars who dominated every other team suddenly froze against Jordan. Role players couldn't think straight. Coaches rewrote entire game plans to avoid challenging him. Even referees hesitated because the intensity radiating from him didn't feel normal. This wasn't basketball anymore. This was psychological warfare wearing a Bulls jersey. And here's the truth no one talks about. Prime Michael Jordan didn't just aim to win. He aimed to remove your belief that winning was even possible. Tonight, we're going inside that version of Jordan, the one players still whisper about, the one who built his legacy not just with stats and highlights, but with a mentality so sharp and so unforgiving that it left permanent scars on the league. This is the version of Jordan that turned legends into memories and rivals into victims. This is prime Michael Jordan, the most terrifying competitor the NBA has ever seen. Prime Michael Jordan didn't arrive all at once. He wasn't handed greatness, and he didn't walk into the league as a finished product. What made his prime so terrifying was that every year leading up to it sharpened something inside him. Every failure hardened him. Every loss reshaped him. And every challenge, whether real or imagined, became fuel for the version of Jordan that would eventually take over the NBA with a level of control no player has matched since. When Jordan entered the league, defenders expected athleticism. They expected dunks, highlights, raw explosiveness. That's how rookies typically announce themselves. But the young version of Jordan brought something different. He brought purpose. Every dribble had direction. Every possession mattered. Opponents quickly realized they weren't guarding a rookie. They were guarding a fully operational competitor who already hated losing more than they loved winning. As the years progressed, that intensity grew teeth. Jordan didn't just score, he dissected. He didn't just dominate physically, he learned how to dominate mentally. The Pistons taught him pain. The Celtics taught him humility. The early playoff exits taught him patience. And all three experiences added layers to the most dangerous mindset the sport has ever seen. You can see the transformation if you watch footage chronologically. The joy turns into focus. The smile becomes a smirk. The highlight dunks become precise attacks. The celebrations disappear. Nothing about him is random. Nothing is wasted. By the late 80s, he wasn't simply trying to beat you. He was building a catalog of your tendencies, your insecurities, your breaking points. And he remembered them. Jordan weaponized memory in a way players weren't prepared for. And that's when the intimidation began. Players would describe how Jordan didn't talk trash the way others did. He didn't need to scream. He didn't need theatrics. Sometimes all it took was a look, a glance across the court that said, "I know exactly how this is about to go." And it unnerved people because he was almost always right. That level of certainty from another human being is unsettling in any profession. But in a sport where your confidence is half your ability, it was devastating. By the time the Bulls evolved into a contender, Jordan had learned how to blend talent with cruelty. He began treating games like chapters in a book he had already read. He knew how a defender would react before the defender reacted. He knew which players were mentally fragile, which ones were emotional, which ones could be manipulated. And he attacked each weakness with surgical precision. Against the Cavaliers, you could see it. Against the Knicks, you could feel it. Against the Pistons, you could hear it in the way they talked about him. There's a reason so many Hall of Famers today sound almost traumatized when they describe facing Jordan. They weren't just guarding a superstar. They were entering into a psychological contract where Jordan dictated the terms. His prime years weren't defined by a single season. They were defined by a stretch in which he was playing basketball at a level so far above the league that players, coaches, and reporters had to create new language just to describe it. The game slowed down for him. The reads became instantaneous. The mid-range became inevitable. And the defense, arguably the most underrated part of his game, became a silent punishment for every mistake an opponent made. Watching Jordan off the ball during these years is almost more impressive than watching him on it. The constant scanning, the hand movements, the anticipation. It's like watching a predator track prey. He knew when a pass was coming. He knew when a cut was mistimed. He knew when a shooter hesitated for half a second too long. And when he pounced, the entire arena felt the impact. The league tried everything. Bigger defenders, shorter defenders, double teams, triple teams, physical play, elite schemes. Nothing worked. Because Jordan's prime wasn't built on one move, one counter, or one athletic advantage. It was built on layers, layers of skill, layers of discipline, layers of obsession. Jordan removed every weakness from his game until all that was left was inevitability. And the scary part? His teammates felt it too. Practices became battlegrounds. Scrimmages turned into psychological warfare. Jordan didn't separate teammates from opponents. He challenged everyone the same way. If you were on his team, he expected you to carry the same burden he carried. And if you didn't, he reminded you, loudly, directly, and relentlessly, that you were slowing him down. Players broke under that pressure. Some cried, some quit, some developed lifelong bitterness. But the ones who survived became champions. That's the environment Jordan created. Brutal, unforgiving, effective. You couldn't hide around him. You couldn't relax. You couldn't cheat a drill. Because Jordan was watching. And deep down, everyone knew he wasn't doing it for ego. He was doing it because he genuinely believed championships demanded that level of sacrifice. And he wasn't wrong. By the early 90s, Jordan had become something the league couldn't contain. Not a star, not an icon, a force. An unstoppable, self-sustaining force who could bend the flow of a game simply by deciding it was time. And yet, his most terrifying form was still coming. By the time the 1990s arrived, Michael Jordan wasn't just playing basketball anymore. He was controlling it. The game moved at his speed, bent to his rhythm, and unfolded according to his decisions. This is the era when Jordan entered a level so advanced that even other all-time greats admitted they were witnessing something different, something the league simply didn't have a counter for. The first Bulls championship run was the clearest sign that Jordan had crossed into a new dimension. The cracks that once existed in his game were sealed. The moments that used to overwhelm him now energized him. Instead of reacting to pressure, he began generating it. You could see it from the opening tip of most games. Jordan would come out with that expressionless stare, the one that made opponents feel like they weren't just facing a superstar, they were facing a verdict. And the most terrifying thing, he didn't need to score 50 to break a team. Sometimes a mid-range jumper was enough, sometimes a simple steal, sometimes a look. Jordan played like he carried a switch inside him. One flip and the entire tone of the game changed. His teammates stood taller, his opponents tightened up. The crowd shifted. Everyone in the building understood that Prime Jordan was entering the part of the night where nothing could stop him. This wasn't arrogance, it was awareness. Jordan understood how fragile confidence was in the NBA, and he made it his weapon. In the finals against the Lakers, you can almost see the exact possession where the series changed. Magic Johnson was still Magic Johnson, but Jordan was moving faster, thinking sharper, striking harder. When he drove down the lane, switched hands in midair, and finished that gravity-defying layup, it wasn't just a highlight, it was a message. Your run ends here. That's how Jordan played in these years, not to win, but to erase hope. He didn't want teams believing they had a chance. He wanted them broken before the fourth quarter arrived, sometimes before halftime, sometimes before the opening whistle. He would study players' twitches, the way they dribbled, even how they reacted to missed shots. Jordan stored mental files on everyone, and once he knew your weakness, he revisited it again and again until you crumbled. But this era wasn't just about domination. It was about total mastery. Jordan's postgame evolved into a clinic of footwork and patience. His fadeaway jumper became a signature weapon that older MJ used as efficiently as young MJ used dunks. His defense matured into something that didn't rely on athleticism alone. It relied on anticipation. He wasn't gambling. He was predicting. He wasn't chasing. He was intercepting. And the deeper the Bulls went into their championship years, the more Jordan began playing not just for himself, but through others. His trust in teammates didn't always come easily. He demanded harsh standards, unforgiving commitment. But once that trust formed, it became part of the Bulls' identity. It wasn't Jordan versus the world anymore. It was Jordan leading a unit that mirrored his hunger. Opponents described those Bulls teams as suffocating, not just physically, mentally. If you slipped for a single second, Jordan was there. If you hesitated, he punished you. If you lost confidence, he took over the game instantly without warning. There's a reason so many teams of that era look back, not with regret, but with acceptance. They weren't just beaten, they were conquered. And just when the league thought it had finally adjusted to Jordan, he walked away. The retirement stunned the world. It confused opponents. It left the NBA in a strange vacuum where stars existed, but the gravitational pull of the league felt missing. But the part that always gets lost is this. Jordan's first retirement didn't cool him down. It sharpened him. Baseball forced him to relearn discipline. It reshaped his body. It humbled him. And when he returned with something frightening: perspective. The league he came back to in 1995 wasn't ready for what followed. The next 3 seasons were the closest the sport has ever seen to perfection. Jordan wasn't the fastest anymore. He wasn't the highest jumper. But he was the smartest, the toughest, the coldest, and the most precise. This older version of Jordan understood tempo, matchups, scoring windows, and psychological vulnerability better than anyone before him. The 72-10 season was the natural result of a player who had nothing left to learn and nothing left to fear. Jordan toyed with defenders. He dismantled systems. The fadeaway jumper became a nightmare no defense could solve. And the moments that would overwhelm other superstars, the closeouts, the Game 5s, the Game 6s, the elimination nights, those were Jordan's home. One of the clearest examples of Jordan's absolute mastery came during the 97 and 98 finals. You could feel the control in every possession. The Bulls weren't always the most athletic team on the floor anymore, but they had Jordan, and that gap alone was bigger than any difference in size, speed, or talent. Even when exhausted, even when sick, even when double-teamed, even when triple-teamed, he found ways to assert himself. Footwork, angles, timing, willpower. It didn't matter what the Jazz tried. They were fighting someone who had built his entire identity on refusing to lose. And then, there was the final shot. The image of Jordan holding the ball at the top of the key in Game 6 is the moment that defines his prime. More than any dunk, trophy, or highlight. Everything he ever learned. Everything he ever survived. Everything he ever demanded from himself. It all funnels into that single possession. No panic, no rush, just composure, awareness, precision. He dribbles right, pushes off slightly, slides left, elevates, and releases a shot that felt almost pre-written. That wasn't luck. That wasn't adrenaline. That was mastery. Jordan's prime didn't end with a fade. It ended with a full stop. A punctuation mark so sharp that the entire league needed years to recover from it. And even after he retired a second time, the impact didn't fade. Players today still try to mimic the footwork, the competitiveness, the mindset. Coaches still reference his detail. Analysts still struggle to quantify his value. And opponents decades later still speak about him with a tone that mixes fear, admiration, and disbelief. Because the truth is simple. Jordan's prime wasn't just better than everyone else's. It was different. And once you truly understand the layers of his evolution, you start to realize why the sport of basketball has spent the last 25 years chasing a standard that was set by one man, and still hasn't been reached again. Quick reminder, if you're still here, you're clearly enjoying this deep dive. Hit that subscribe button so YouTube keeps recommending these prime-era videos to you. There's a moment in every great athlete's career when time steps in and starts asking questions. Are you still the same? Do you still have it? Can you keep carrying the weight of being you? Most players spend their lives trying to avoid that moment. Michael Jordan ran toward it. By the end of his prime, Jordan wasn't just fighting opponents anymore. He was fighting expectation, fatigue, age, pressure, and a league that was evolving around him. Every season brought a new star, a new challenger, a new system built to slow him down. None of it worked, because Jordan didn't rely on youth or athleticism or highlight plays. He relied on something deeper, a refusal to let anyone else write the ending. That is what separates Jordan from every name that came before, and every name that came after. Look at Game 6 in 1998. Everything was against him. His body, the moment, the fatigue, the double teams, the noise, the pressure. Yet he walked onto that court with the calm of someone who already knew how the story would end. Not because he was lucky, not because he was destined, but because for 15 years, Jordan had been preparing for that exact possession. When he stole the ball from Karl Malone, there was no celebration, no roar, no fist pump, just silence. Because Jordan knew the game wasn't over yet, he jogged the ball up the court, holding it in his hands like a closing chapter. 20,000 people around him felt the tension rising, and yet somehow, he looked the most relaxed person in the building. Then it happened. The final shot, a single crossover, a subtle push, a step into space, and a jumper so pure that even the net seemed to hesitate out of respect. In that instant, everything stopped. Not just the arena, basketball itself. That shot wasn't simply the end of a game. It was the end of an era, a signature so perfect that it sealed his legacy with no debate, no doubt, no need for explanation. This is what prime Jordan looked like. A player who didn't just rise to the moment, he created the moment. He didn't wait for greatness, he demanded it. And he didn't leave the game quietly. He carved his exit into history with a shot that still echoes through the sport decades later. Most players spend their careers chasing a perfect ending. Michael Jordan ended his prime by delivering one. And when he walked off that floor in Utah with his fist raised one last time, the world wasn't just watching an athlete. They were watching the conclusion of a masterpiece, a prime so complete, so dominant, so untouched, that basketball has been trying to recreate it ever since. Because once you understand what Jordan was at his peak, you realize something important. They weren't just watching the greatest player of an era, they were watching the greatest version of the greatest competitor the sport has ever seen. And that is how good prime Michael Jordan actually was. If this Prime series brought back memories or taught you something new about MJ, consider subscribing. We're building the biggest Michael Jordan library on YouTube, and you're invited to be part of it.